Yes, present. Thank you.
If we can all rise for our invocation tonight, will be presented by Michelle Desmond, prayer pastor from the Tehachapi Vineyard Church. Thank you, Michelle.
Father God, we invite your presence here tonight and to move among us. Would you bring wisdom and guidance? Lord, would you shower the dew of your blessing and your grace upon every member here and every person that is watching and attending. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the chief come forward, please, with his guest.
Come on, guys.
Welcome, guys. Cub Scout Troop again 135.
Stand right in front of me. So these young gentlemen decided to come tonight and do a tour of the police department and kind of learn how the operations of the police department goes. And so they wanted to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but they wanted me to come up and help lead it with them so they could join in. All right, guys, let's look at the flag, remember? Okay, you guys ready? We're going to lead it off. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions, if comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with the opportunity for the member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. Staff recommendations are shown in caps. Do we have anybody from the audience who would like to have anything removed from the consent? Council? I see none.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Power?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Hogencourt?
Yes.
Davies?
Yes.
It's a 4-0 vote to approve the consent agenda.
Great. Public comment. Do we have anybody here for public comment? Tori, you have something for us? No? I'm sorry. Reese, okay. Okay. Item 4. Key Budge, community engagement reports, please.
Good evening, Mayor Davies, Council. I really get probably the best part of each of the council agendas and get to present special things to you. And it's with great honor that whenever I get to talk about our veterans, and that's what we're going to be doing today. We found a special program that's in its at least its 11th year, the Honor Flight of Kern County. They're in the midst of a fundraising to try and send veterans back to Washington, D.C. to see the different memorials. And we've got some special guests that I'm going to introduce you here in a moment. But what we've, after discussions with City Manager Greg Garrett, internally, we wanted to present to Council and ask for a donation to sponsor at least one of our veterans to go back and experience Honor Flight. So what I would like to do, and the cost of this is $1,500, which is all-inclusive for that veteran. So I'd like to invite Stephen Miles, who represents Honor Flight Kern County, come forward, tell you a little bit more about the program before I ask you to consider us making a donation. Stephen, if you don't mind.
Good evening, council members, members of the city, and the public. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak a little bit about Honor Flight. For those that may not be aware, Honor Flight is a nationally recognized 501(c), and basically we send veterans to Washington, D.C. to view their memorials and take part in ceremonies to honor their service. For some veterans, and I get choked up about this can be life-changing for some of these people, especially the guys from Vietnam. I'm a Vietnam veteran, And I can remember that we changed our clothes before we went out in town. We changed our clothes on airplanes coming back because we didn't want anybody to know we were in the service, which was kind of hard anyway because we were the only ones with short hair in the 60s and 70s. But with that said, this thing that we do for some of these veterans, it can be life-changing for them. Excuse me. Everything is paid for the veteran. It's a 3 or 4 day non-stop bus trip from hotels in DC. When I went back a year ago last May, we visited the World War II Memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, the Korean Memorial. We went to Fort Sumter, and just standing there and remembering the lyrics of that song really puts into perspective what was happening then. So this is really something I can't express enough how much this affects a lot of the people that go. And for $1,500, you send a veteran back. We can designate it just for Tehachapi. And each veteran that goes has a guardian that goes with them. A lot of the guys are in wheelchairs, so they have one individual guardian. For the ones that get along well, they have 2 or 3 veterans per guardian. And basically what we do is make sure everybody gets up on time and makes the bus and gets to all the events. Each person is recognized at a dinner later in the evening. So there's individual accomplishments. And then when we get back to Bakersfield, we're greeted by hundreds of people that come to the airport and say thank you for your service. It's really a worthwhile thing that you can do. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll stick around and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Miles.
I'd like to also introduce Commander Lynn Eckert from American Legion Post 221, and she'd like to just share a few things with you as well. Lynn?
Thank you. Good evening, board members. I am one of those veterans that went on that flight. I was from the Vietnam era. I never even said I was a Vietnam vet until about 10 years ago. When I left, my family disowned me. I joined the service for 5 years. I went toward the tail end of the Vietnam War. Spent 5 years. I spent 3 years in Japan, 2 years stateside. When I came home, I left my duffel bag full of all my uniforms and what have yous for that whole 5-year period. My family burned everything I had. I walked out that door and never went back. So I started thinking, you know, well, maybe I should say, well, no, I'm not. You know, then I felt guilty because I was not boots on the ground combat veteran. But I was a veteran, and I did serve my country, and I was a woman Marine veteran. And when they asked me to go on the honor flight, it took me 3 years because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel I deserved to go. I didn't fight in the war. I didn't have anything to do with that. It took the American Legion, actually, commander at that time, to bop me on the head and say, you need to go. When I went, I was the only woman Marine and the only woman on the flight out of 98 other veterans. And I'm telling you, it changed my life. I now hold my head up high. I wear my Marine hat when I can do that. I'm able to stand here and say we were spoiled rotten. Not only did I go as a veteran, the next flight I wanted to give back, and I went as a guardian. And for me to stand back, and I had 2 Vietnam veterans, healthy, and watch them experience what I experienced, it gives me chills. It tears me up, just like it does him. To watch these men and women go through the experience of letting it go. They asked me to present a wreath from Kern County at the wall where the East and West Wall met, and that was a huge honor. But to watch these, and I had a lot of friends also that I lost during that war, but to watch these guys just let go and be with their guardians and be able to talk to them for the whole 3 days and experience what they never got. Most of these guys came home, like you said, changed clothes on the plane, didn't even say they were from the war, and your heart just bleeds. But to watch them all get together, and then we all have a special ceremony on the plane where we hand them what we call roll call letters. which is really awesome. Then they just start bawling, you know, and so it is a very well worth project for Honor Flight. I help Steve Miles when we do our fundraisers here. I work on the Eastern County side also. I just signed up 2 veterans from Tehachapi, 2 83-year-old gentlemen that served in the Cold War, Korean War, and Vietnam War. So I'm really happy that I'm able to supply this end of it. And then Steve has his fundraiser every June that helps us raise that money because, like you said, it does cost $1,500 to send a veteran. So it's a worthwhile endeavor, and I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Commander.
Well, I don't think there's anything left for me to say other than what we're asking for is $1,500 to send one of our local veterans in support of this program. And happy to answer questions or ask our 2 veterans if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions from the public, from the gallery?
I don't have a question, but I have a statement.
Yes, ma'am.
We were
Come on down.
Come on down.
Come up here.
You were with me. Come on. This is, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Come on.
Come on, guys.
It's okay. No pressure.
Come
It's
on.
all right.
We got to go and witness one of these last year, my kids. We got to go witness a friend of ours who, when he first originally returned, he was beaten to an inch of his life. And he got to, and he's here in Tehachapi, he got to go on this last year. And he didn't know that a lot of us from church were going down there. But they couldn't thank us enough. We made posters and stuff, but then in the end, watching all of them come back and my kids' face and asking each one of them their story and shaking their hand. And I told them in the end, the best gift was not us going there. It was them, seeing them and having that respect and being able to witness this and give it to them so that the next generation that we're raising won't spit on our military or our police officers, but thank them and shake their hand and say, thank you for your service. And that, to me, is far more than a little bit of money. That's all I wanted to say. Did you want to say anything about your experience?
Oh, no. Thank you.
If you don't mind, Mr. Miles asked if he could just say one more thing.
Sure.
Of course.
The main reason we're here is fundraising. I've been doing a fundraising in Tehachapi that I started on my own for 10 years. This is the 11th year. It's June 14th, Flag Day. Put that in your calendars. It's at Triassic Vineyards. We're starting earlier this year because I ran really late. I had so much stuff to give away. We gave away over $22,000 worth of gifts and gift certificates and baskets and items, and we raised over $24,000 last year in Little Tehachapi. And this was like 2 weeks after the Screw Cancer event. So Tehachapi, as you all know, is one of the most giving communities that I've ever been involved in. I'm sure you too. So I've already got a very large donation that was confirmed, a 5-figure donation that'll be announced at my fundraising event. And I'm hoping that all of you can put this in your calendar and show up at Triassic on Flag Day, June 14th. We're going to have a flag retirement ceremony. We're going to have a presentation of colors, and we're going to have the singing of the national anthem. And then Mono has agreed to provide food for the event. And last year he was going to donate the proceeds, but he donated everything. Mono is really good for Tehachapi. So please, another good way to keep track of everything is a Facebook page that I have, Honor Flight Tehachapi. I post everything on that, everything that's being donated, so you can keep track of everything. Probably the biggest item I had last year was a weekend with dinner and a show at South Point Casino in Vegas. I had a show at the Fox Theater. I had a show at the Mechanics Bank Theater. So it's not just Tehachapi businesses. I do reach out to try and generate more people to come to the event. But, you know, by the way, Triassic has great wine too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Okay. We have no other comments from the council. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I was privileged to be able to go on an honor flight, and I noticed the price is up a little bit from when I went on, and Steve must have gone on the same flight I did, because he has the same color shirt, so we may have crossed paths at that point. And it's quite a moving experience. One of the things I remember the most is this American flag that was the size of a football field. It was huge. And during the Vietnam War, I was in my teens and 20s, and I was appalled at the way our military was treated. And it motivated me to go back to visit Vietnam, and Vietnam is a beautiful country, and I would have never thought that, knowing what I saw on television at that time in the news. So I really have a high regard for our service people during that time. They were treated poorly, and I remember that, and I go, how can they do that? They're serving our country. Do not do that. So anyway, it's a 3-day trip. It's the smallest suitcase I've ever taken on a trip. It's a little duffel bag, and you take 3 days stuff with you. And I had 2 gentlemen that I was their guardian. Actually, they were probably my guardian, but anyway. And it's a very worthwhile, a whirlwind trip, but very worth every penny. So if we can give that much and then more, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, this is sensitive to all of us. So my dad, my father-in-law, and my uncle all served during Vietnam. My uncle was a POW for 6 years. And they never talked about it. And I remember when my husband came back from a deployment, I don't even know how many, my husband flew F-16s for 23 years in the Air Force. We were at an event, he was in uniform in the public, and people came up and thanked him for his service. And my father-in-law, my uncle just bawled, because that was something that they never witnessed, and they never thought they would witness. And as you're talking here today, I always thought of Honor Flight as a way of honoring our servicemen. I never realized, truthfully, and I've known you forever, Steve, how healing it is. And I'm a little overwhelmed by that. Anyhow, that's all I have to say, I think, but it affects everyone at this table greatly.
And not only do you visit cemeteries, but you also get to go to the Capitol and do some fun things and meet all your governors and senators and everything else. So it's not just going to the memorials, and the memorials are outstanding and beautiful. So.
Yes, go ahead.
I think I want everyone to know, and I don't even have to say it, Tehachapi loves its veterans. We support our veterans on all the occasions that they have, and I think this is such a worthwhile cause. I spent numerous trips with my company that I work for, going to Leesburg, Virginia, and we went into Washington. It was just an hour from Washington, D.C., and I saw every memorial that you could see. But one of the ones that stands out was the Vietnam Memorial, because you're in this giant area where you've got the Washington Monument, the Capitol Plaza, all of this, and then you come around a bend and things get real quiet. Yeah. I mean, there's people hubbub all around the park area, and then you come up on these memorials for World War II and then the Vietnam Memorial. And I had a task at the time to get some friends of mine that were killed in Vietnam to get I had to look through their initials out of how many? 60,000, 50, however many, or I'm sorry? 58,000. 58. There's a lot of names on there, and I found my buddies. And you'd see people up there on the wall with a pencil like this, getting their initials off the wall for them. It's very moving. And if we can contribute to someone going to experience that, I experienced it as a spectator, as a tourist, just going there. I can't imagine coming back from Vietnam and then going to that. I mean, I used to write letters to a buddy that was up in a tree, and we would pass letters back and forth. He was in the middle of it. I was in the Coast Guard for 6 years, so I didn't go do what they did, and they paid the price. But if we could go 2 times, not just one flight, I'd recommend that. That would be my motion.
Mr. Garrett?
Mayor, thank you. I've known Ms. Eckert and Mr. Miles for many years, and our relationship grows stronger and stronger every day. We would not be here tonight had it not been for veterans. That some pay the ultimate sacrifice. When Mr. Miles and I started talking about this, my wife and I have been donating to this cause, you know, year over year, just a little bit. But I told Steve, I said, why don't we put this on the agenda and let's promote it. Let's make people aware of this amazing closure now. And so this has been extremely powerful for me also. I would like to suggest that we pay for 5 veterans, and I would like to volunteer myself, but also pay for 5 guardians. That would be $13,500. We have the cash. Again, we would not be here today had it not been for the ultimate sacrifices these men and women have paid currently and in the past. That's what I would like to suggest to the City Council.
I think that would be my motion, and I think my motion's for everyone on this council and everyone in the city.
Yep.
This is the city's people that have given all that they can give, and I think that's so generous that we can do this. Yes,
Yep.
That'd be my motion then.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call
Can we
vote.
change the amount though? Do we
Yeah,
have to
what-
change that?
Yes.
So on this item 4, Honor Flight, Kern County approved sponsorship of local veterans for Honor Flight to Kern County, the amount of $13,500.
Which would include 5 veterans and 5 guardians.
5
which is,
veterans,
so the
yeah.
veterans would be 7,500, 6,000 for the guardians. Is that my math correct?
For the guardians.
Yeah, so, but 6,000 for the guardians.
Pardon me?
Isn't it 15?
Whoops.
It's 15 for the veteran and 1,200 for the guardians.
Right, just did quick math, so that's 13,500 for the 10 individuals.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
13.5.
Okay. I agree.
All right. So now we got 13,500, so we need to read that all into what we just said we're gonna do?
Yeah, we have it. I'll
Okay.
take a vote.
All right, roll call vote,
I
please.
don't need to take a vote, but I'll take a vote.
Yeah.
Power,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Covenant,
Yes.
Davies.
Yes.
It's 4-0 vote. Thank you.
I went down, I've gone to 2 homecomings now, and I went to the first one, and it was very impressive, and didn't think it could beat, and I went, my general manager where I work went on the flight, so we went down there, and it was even more, because I knew a person that was on that flight. The first one I went to, and I didn't know anybody, but the second one I knew, and it was very, very moving. So if you guys have an opportunity to go down there to homecoming, it would be awesome. It's a great event, what we do, what they have done for us. Mr. Budge?
Can I ask council and our 2 vets to take a photo?
Sure.
Before we do, I was trying to remember, there's a quote from Martin Luther King. I tried to write it down, and I probably screwed it up. But it says, in the end, we'll not remember the words of our enemy, but the silence of our friends.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I'll take a hug.
Too.
Thank you so much. Good talk. Thank you.
You must gone, same one I did, because I had the same shirt, I got
A year
long
ago,
sleeve,
You
short
did.
sleeve.
I got a short sleeve and a long
Mine
sleeve.
was about 5 or 6 years ago or more. Here, let me get out of here, wait.
Thank you so much.
I get my good side.
So we've got two, let's start right here with Pat.
No, no, come
And for me. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. You know we have an MIA for here. That's yeah, I want to mention that really quick. I want to mention one thing really quick, that we had the honor with the city. Ugh. Not that I haven't cried already. We do have a memorial for Gilbert Mitchell, who was our MIA. And we had a bench placed at the American Legion here in the springtime. So we did that. It was one of our things as the American Legion. I didn't even know we had an MIA until I went to the Portrait War Gallery in Bakersfield, found his name and sponsored. It took me 2 years, but we got the bench, we got the dedication. We have a 16-by-20 picture of him in the American Legion next to our POWMIA table. So, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. In my agenda here, I forgot to write in, we just lost a member of our community just recently here, the owner of the Hitching Post Theaters. If we could all stand and just honor Mr. Will Viner for just a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. With that, I need the item 6 RSI disbursements for bills February 1st to February 13th. I need to recuse myself because I'm an employee of RSI Petroleum, and I'd like to have Mayor Pro Tem Pogencourt take it over.
Okay. Next item up is the RSI disbursements and bills. Do I have any comments from the public? Council?
No.
Roll call.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second?
And let's have a roll call vote, please.
Howard?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
And Pokencourt?
Yes.
It's a 3-2-1 vote to approve.
Okay, that was hard.
We're all trying not to cry still.
Yeah, I was going to follow that, Jake. We just had that conversation. It's like, what am I supposed? How am I
Follow
supposed to
that,
follow
Jake.
that with what I've got for you guys tonight?
Hello, Jay, welcome.
Did you bring Kleenexes? Just
Yeah. Well, I'll thank you guys. My father was a Vietnam veteran. My grandfather was a D-Day +3 and fought in the Battle of the Bulge. So, I've been to DC and I've been to each of those memorials, and if you've never been, you simply must find a way to go. If you love this country, you have to find a way to go. Anyway, all right. Are you ready, Mayor? Or shall I go to my next item?
Go right ahead, sir.
All right, very good. Item number 9 is the Tract 6668 Final Map and Improvement Agreement. So tonight, this first item for you is this tentative tract map was approved by the City Council, or the Planning Commission of the City Council back in 2006. So this is one of the oldest maps that have kind of lingered in the city due to state regulation that allowed them to continue. In fact, I think this might be the last map from that kind of previous building boom era that managed to keep itself alive. Other maps that we had from back then are expired. But this is 18 lots located north of Pinion Street, east of Fig Street. Yep, there's a map showing the location. I know you guys, these lots are nearly complete in terms of construction. The roadway is in, most of the curb, gutter, and sidewalk is in place. The developer is now interested in having the final map recorded, which is the physical process by which the land is subdivided into the 18 lots. It currently is in this configuration. And so in order to do that, we need to enter into an improvement agreement with that developer to govern the completion of the public improvements. We're nearly there, but if you've driven by and you've got an eye for it, you'll see some missing elements, and so those need to be completed. So we've, working with the city attorney, we've prepared the proposed agreement that is attached to this staff report. Because of the relatively small amount of work that is remaining, we've worked out an agreement in which that developer will place a deposit with the city finance department that will then govern the construction of those remaining items, and from that deposit we will release funds as he completes those improvements. So that's our security in case we subdivide this land but he then disappears. So we have that security in place, and then the developer is also going to be required, prior to the release that myself and the city engineer will bring back to you, prior to that he'll have to post a bond to guarantee those improvements for a 1-year period. So that's what the municipal code requires of us in a situation like this. And so again, we've prepared the agreement with the assistance of, not the assistance, the city attorney wrote the agreement, and we are ready to advance those. So tonight I'm asking you to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the reimbursement agreement for tentative tract map 6668 with Mountain Investments, Tehachapi LLC, and also to authorize the city clerk to sign final map 6668 on behalf of the city council and record. So that's the physical map, and then the clerk signs that on your behalf if you guys so choose. So that's my recommendation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the gallery tonight? No? Council?
Jay, is that lot across from Tompkins right there?
It's down the street from Tompkins, so it's about a half mile west of Tompkins. This is, so if this is,
right next to mine.
Yeah, where Mayor Davies lives. So Hickory, Cherry Lane Estates, is that the name of the Cherry Lane Estates neighborhood? So it's immediately next to the Cherry Lane Estates neighborhood, which puts it about a half mile down Pinion from Tompkins.
So it's not directly across.
Correct, it's not.
I was thinking it was directly.
Well, that's the next item for you is much closer to
yeah.
Tompkins. Yeah, this one's a little ways away.
Okay, I'm ahead of myself, sorry.
Phil?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
No, I'm
Okay.
good, thank you.
All right, I have nothing, so roll call vote, please.
I make a motion
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Ovencourt.
Yes.
Davies.
Yes,
It's a 4-0 vote to approve, thank you.
thank you. Item 10.
Very good. So similar item, but not exactly the same. Tentative tract map 7440 it was approved by the council just last year. So this is one of 2 small condominium projects that are located to the west of Tompkins near the intersection of Curry and Pinion. And so this development, this is one of the 2 developments. This is a 19-unit condominium complex that's proposed in this location, previously approved by both the Planning Commission and this council. So part of the process by which they move into permitting with a condominium, the mapping rules, the federal rules for how you map and change hands require a special map called a condominium map. And so it's 1 lot now. It will continue to be 1 lot, but you have to record a map that declares it to be a condominium so that you can prepare an HOA and have the governance structure that comes along with a condominium. And so the company, Pinion LLC, they very creatively named themselves for this project, but they are seeking to advance that project into construction this year. At least that's what they tell us. And so this is one of the several steps necessary to permit the project. In this case, no improvement agreement is necessary because the public improvements on the south side of Pinion are in place already. And so they're going to cut in a driveway, but not much more than that. And so in this case, we feel comfortable allowing the map to move forward on a staff level where we record it as a condominium map, and that allows them, again, to put the condominium program in place. So I recommend that you approve and authorize the city clerk to sign final map 7440 on behalf of the city council and record that document. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Council? Phil?
Go ahead. Do you have any idea of how it will impact the school? Because it's a mess over there, and then, when they're bringing kids in, taking them out, you know, the
Sure.
buses are coming and
Hopefully the impact for
construction.
this one is pretty minor. Construction shouldn't, because the public improvements are so minor, it's literally cutting a driveway in to get in and out. The construction period should not be too impactful. In terms of, it is going to, the condominium is proposed to include it's a gated condominium. So they'll have and they have an internal parking lot to serve the condos that are part of that. So the long-term effects should be negligible. Other than perhaps that some students will live, that go to the school will live in that, but that frankly will work great for them. If you recall, at the time that you all approved this map, there is another condominium project across the street that's proposed in the future. No timeline is known yet on that. That project would necessitate the widening of Pinion Street and some additional improvements for that project to facilitate the construction of that one. And so that would have a positive benefit on the area by adding capacity to the roadway network and building the pedestrian improvements to add some connections in there. So this project I think is pretty low impact, and then in the future the other project associated with this one would be helpful. So.
Go ahead. Jill? Is the owners to the south on the other project, are they the same owners?
Yes.
Doing both
Two
projects?
different, technically it's two different LLCs. So
Right.
in the eyes of the corporate world, they're two different companies. But
Right.
I believe the owners are the same.
I think there's a need for the condominiums in town, and I think they'll do well, actually.
For what it's worth, they report to me they already have a waiting list of potential
Wow.
buyers. So I don't think it's an extensive list, but even if 2, 3, 4 of the 19 units are already spoken for, that's a strong indication that they would be well taken. Yeah.
I had a question. Does the city have criteria for the HOAs? I'm assuming that you have a heavy influence on, or not a heavy influence, but you influence the
We do have an
HOAs?
influence on it, yes. So we do review the CC&Rs and the formation documents. My team, along with assistance from the city attorney, review those as a typical course. Our big items is we're looking for known governance issues associated with CC&R. So like how they handle a short-term rental, how they handle their own governance structure so that they can take a delinquent property owner and handle them themselves instead of trying to draw the city council into a fight with an individual property owner. And so, a lot of that is governed by state law. The Department of Real Estate regulates them. But we push, the big one that we always ask for and have received on this one is 50% plus one owner occupied. So the HOA will be required to maintain at least 51% of the units, or in this case, if there's 19 units, 10 of the units must be owner occupied at all times. So that helps, we think, keep the quality up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I have nothing, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the authorize the city clerk to sign the final map 7440 on behalf of the city council and record.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Power,
Yes?
Smith,
Yes.
Valencourt,
Yes.
Davies.
Yes.
It's a 4-0 vote to approve.
Thank you.
Assistant city manager reports, Mr. Costello.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Davies and council members. A couple items for you tonight. The first one is relating to this request that was brought to our attention by the CPUC and AT&T. So right now, AT&T, back to their history, right? They were the phone company for the most part, so much so that the federal government broke them up years ago because they were so big, the mobile companies. So what they've done now, they're considered a carrier of last resort as more and more people go to cell phones and voice over IP. They have their phone lines. Well, fewer and fewer customers have phone lines now. But they're requesting relief from the CPUC, and therefore they don't want to provide their POT service anymore, which is considered plain old television service, plain old telephone service, the landlines. And so they would like to get out of that business, and that creates kind of a problem because we all know about the AT&T cellular issues in this community. They've attempted a few times to fix them and yet to come up with a solution. But there is some benefits to POTS line service. They are reliable voice communication during power outages. They have very simple infrastructure, so they're less susceptible to cyber attacks and that sort of thing. And also they're used for critical services, emergency calls, alarms for fire and security, And it's also a basic form of communication. So when some of those more advanced options are unavailable, unreliable, or disrupted. So they are allowed under their universal service rules to apply and opt out of their carrier of last resort obligations when another carrier of last resort takes over that responsibility. AT&T is requesting that relief, which will cover 99% of their service territory, including the city of Tehachapi and the greater Tehachapi areas as well. They've identified another voice carrier, but is not requesting nor identifying another carrier of last resort to take their place. The recent application also requests an expedited approval for future relief of those obligations, which basically doesn't require a traditional CPUC approval. So their first request, if their first request is approved by the CPUC, they could cancel service to all its POTS customers as soon as 6 months from the approval date. So staff has drafted an opposition letter addressed to Alice Reynolds, the president of the CPUC, in opposition of AT&T's request. Obviously, it's going to negatively impact rural customers, and with few service options, limited access to reliable 911 dispatch services, and both fire and security alarms in the city of Tehachapi. Also, AT&T cannot rely on their wireless and lacking coverage in Tehachapi as a reliable option for either cellular or voice over IP connections. On 4 occasions, AT&T has attempted to either build or co-locate more cellular technology unsuccessfully within the city. There's not been a new tower built to this date, although they continue to work through the process for a tower at the Tehachapi Municipal Airport and are expected to co-locate new antennas on existing facilities within the city this year. However, cellular technology, as previously mentioned, less reliable for critical services, impacted by power outages. As folks probably noticed during power outages, your cell phone service goes down because those towers are also being operated either via generator or they're just offline, and also potential cyber attacks. So we'd like to ensure that both equitable and reliable quality services for our community are available, and that true POTS line service is identified prior to the CPUC granting AT&T's request to essentially abandon their service as well as their telephone line. So we have the letter is attached, and one of these as well, another interesting thing to note is there's no requirement inside this request for them to take down their existing infrastructure. As you probably remember, what was it, about 6 years ago, we had the big bike path project on Tehachapi Boulevard. We took down telegraph wires from the railroad from the early 1900s. Because they had abandoned them and they were just there and they were just an eyesore. So there's no requirement for them to even get rid of their infrastructure. So as you can see in the letter that we have drafted, we've not only opposed this application, we're joining the County of Kern and several other folks that are opposing this request, but also we said if you are going to grant it, at least put in the provision they take down their infrastructure, because it's not fair to not only abandon customers, then abandon their lines and wires and just have them be in the city for another 100 years until another grant comes along and they get removed for another reason. So we would like to, with the council's blessing, join surrounding communities in opposing this request by AT&T to the CPUC, authorize the mayor to sign the letter, and it'll be submitted on behalf of the Tehachapi City Council. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Council?
I'm not pleased with AT&T's service. If I go downtown, I cannot use my cell phone. And they say out of cellular service. I'll get a block from my house where I can supposedly have cellular service, and it still says out of cellular service. Their landline is 10 million times more reliable than their cell phone line. So I thoroughly endorse sending this letter and trying to block that. So.
Bill?
Is there a feel up and down the state that there's a lot of opposition to this?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of opposition to this because in this service territory.
League of Cities?
Yeah, especially in this service, different service providers have different territories. AT&T is the carrier of last resort for Kern County and other counties in the state, but especially amongst Kern County, whether it be the county of Kern or other jurisdictions. And there's a laundry list, and what we saw some information from the county, I mean, pretty much every rural community, city inside the county would be impacted negatively by this. So it's something that the Board of Supervisors is opposing, other cities are inside the county. and I assume as well other counties in the state that where the carrier of last resort is AT&T, the same for those same reasons, reliability and just the fact that some people still don't have cell phones. They're just the landline is, and it's more affordable than a wireless plan. You can get basic service on your phone line very cheap compared to a cell plan, which usually run over $100 a month. So that's the feel is countywide, especially in this service area, especially when you're abandoned 99% of it, that given our rural nature and just the unreliability of other technologies, this is not going to fly.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
I thought, and there was a condition I was reading where they can make this application if there is indeed another carrier that will backfill the service.
Yeah.
And there isn't one.
There's
except
another
for
voice
wireless.
carrier, but not another carrier using those POTS lines.
Correct.
I mean, anybody can get a voice over IP. I know Race Communications offer voice over IP. A lot of
Yeah.
phones have gone to voice over IP. It's basically an internet phone. You get a similar phone number, but you're reliant on the internet service. And so power goes out, internet goes out, phone is now out. Where this being very simple infrastructure, the phone remains active in power outages and emergency situations. And it's very important for our dispatch center, fire alarms, that sort of thing, security alarms at businesses. They rely on, because the phone is more reliable than the voice over IP lines that sometimes are connected to those alarms.
Are they losing money on that service that they're providing?
I would assume so, just because of the transition.
If they were making money, it's probably
I mean, I know people that I've had family members, and I know people that are still working for AT&T, and they don't do phone line calls very much anymore. Most people want internet service or something else, home internet, whatever it might be, wireless internet, but their phone service calls have gone drastically, and so now they see this as a business opportunity to get out of that, even though they benefited as being the carrier of last resort for decades. Like I said, so much so that they had to be broken up as an antitrust case because it was such a big carrier at one time across the country. So.
Yeah. I know a lot of our businesses downtown rely on the AT&T hard lines.
Yeah.
And you try to run a square on your cell phone downtown at Central Park, and I'm sure Claire can speak of this too, Central Park or at any of our festivals, the vendors have to bring their own hotspots because they can't connect.
Yeah, and like I said, they have been working on in the past. Some have been their own issues, some have been other issues. I know they had a school district one approved, and then that was taken off the table. But it's still that wireless piece. Even if they were to make this coverage great, you're still missing that piece of reliability, which is very important for a lot of business operations, public safety as well.
Yeah. Tehachapi News wrote a really great article about this as well.
Great.
About a full page.
Awesome.
Okay. I see no other questions. Somebody like to make a motion?
I so move.
Okay, I'll second it. Roll call vote, please.
Bauer?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bovencord?
Yes.
Davies?
Yes.
It's a 4-0 vote to approve.
Item 12, recycling and organic material service authorization for new rates subject to public notice and hearing. Mr. Costello.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Davies. So, as the council is aware, the City of Tehachapi continues to work through the state-mandated regulations surrounding SB 1383 and the state-mandated organics recycling programs. The ordinance establishing such services have been approved by council. This was done in 2023. We've been working through regulatory and compliance issues with Cal Recycle, who is the sort of enforcement and regulation arm of this legislation, and navigating a complex commercial implementation, food rescue, waivers program, all sorts of things with our hauler WM, and formerly Waste Management. This is our new branding, so I'm trying to stay consistent. So WM is what I'll refer to. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. They're in the audience. So as it relates to curbside program for residential customers, we worked through just a tapestry of issues. Corrective action plan issued by Cal Recycle in 2023. We brought that to council with the goal of adding the final compliance item, the curbside organic service, by this summer. Recently, due to the progress made in all other areas of the CAP, we were granted an extension to implement curbside service until July 1st, 2024. It was technically supposed to be in place by next month. Previously, the council approved that new service as part of our CAP, adding organics recycling components into our Muni code. The enforcement of that code was put on hold until the remaining elements starting the service were addressed. we have reached that position in this long journey. So as part of that, we need to figure out the rate structure, how this is going to be paid for. The state will push back when we say this is an unfunded mandate. They say, no, you have the ability to go ask for funds. And if you don't get those funds, you can pay for it yourself. That is their answer to calling this an unfunded mandate, although we still call it an unfunded mandate. So we worked in collaboration with WM and MSW consultants in reviewing proposed rates for services. The entire rate structure is included in the agenda packet, along with a rates report, projected increases over the next 5 years, and an engineer's report inside the study. With that additional service being added to the WM route, including another vehicle and staff to service the additional route, the costs were evaluated by our consultant and found in the attached report to be reasonable within costs of providing such services. So the new structure for residential services includes a 3-cart collection model for trash, recycling, and organics. Under this proposal, the monthly rates for basic residential service will increase from $22.68 per month to $33.91 per month, for a total increase of $11.23 per month. Any additional carts will be billed separately by WM, as is the current process. Additionally, due to state requirements surrounding the operation of the materials recovery facility, business rates will also increase, as businesses will be required to have source-separated recycling as part of their service. Currently, some commercial customers have a mixed waste, basically the dumpster, where they can put trash or recycling in that, and then they have the 64-gallon organics cart that was put in a couple years ago. And then the waste and dumpster essentially is sent to the MRF, where recyclable materials are hand separated. Cal Recycle is requiring to move away from what they call this dirty MRF because of the potential for recyclable materials to be a bit contaminated. So say you throw a cardboard box in this bin, then you throw some grease or something on top of it, that cardboard is no longer recyclable. And so they want to be able to increase diversion rates and recycle more. So we're going to be forced to move to a source-separated materials, meaning an additional cart service for recyclable materials will be required for many commercial customers, and the proposed commercial rates reflect that change. So the government code allows for annual increases based on the consumer price index, along with calculation methodology for a period not to exceed 5 years. This process is currently in place with our current franchise agreement, and will be included in an amended and restated agreement that will come before the council in April. Annually, WM submits the CPI request usually around May, and ratepayers are notified a month prior to the coming change on July 1st. Staff's also done another analysis of nearby jurisdictions to review their rate increases, specifically among residential customers compared to the proposed increase that we're providing. The following table has those rates of the jurisdiction, the hauler, and the increase by adding 1383 organic services. So you can see ours at $33.91. The city of Ridgecrest is actually unique. They're the first jurisdiction in the state to actually, in order to keep their rate increase down, they opted for an every other week trash and every week organics and recycling. So trash is only picked up every other week, and your organics and recycling cart is out every week. Certainly a learning curve in Ridgecrest for that. They're still going through that learning curve. The cost increase was much lower, but it was a really big change. It wasn't just, here's a third bin, it's going to cost this much more. It's like, not only you have a third bin, but now your trash is going to be only every other week. The city of Taft, they're working with a hauler called Westside Waste Management. Their increase currently is at $38.11. But if you see in the footnote there, they also include street sweeping services in their rates, and they project a 17% increase annually for each of the next 3 years. So they will cap out at $44.85 a month, which is about twice what we currently are and quite a bit more than what we are proposing. Golden Hill CSD, their hauler J. Torres, their rate increases were right in line with ours. Their rates were similar to start with, and their rates with organics are a little bit more, and their increase is about the same, about $11 a month. City of Wasco, they work with American Refuse. Their increase is nearly $10 a month for their similar service. So we certainly feel that we work with WM and our consultant as much as possible to keep this rate increases low. As you can see in the consultant's analysis, we have that attached in the packet. And they've reviewed things like our proposed franchise agreement, which I mentioned will come to council at a later date, verified the admin costs, many of which are state mandated, oversee the refuse and recycling services in the city. An important thing to point out in the consultant's report, many cities in their enterprise funds, and we certainly do this with things like water and wastewater, like to target for about 25% in reserves. And that's accomplished by raising either franchise fees with their hauler or administrative costs. We took a lesser approach to ensure the rates proposed were as low as possible. Many times the consultant reached out and said, why don't we go for 15%? Because currently it's 10% on a franchise fee. And I had to explain, first of all, we don't own a lot of assets in the waste fund. We have a contract hauler with WM, and they own everything. Most of our expenses are on the admin side. We do the billing, and we have folks in finance and customer service folks up front that deal with some things. And then myself, as the state says more and more, the jurisdiction must be involved in the day-to-day, our admin costs are up. But we were still able to keep that franchise fee at 10%, and then we targeted our fund balance, our reserve, to about 5%, just to make sure we weren't passing more rate on to the customer. We try to keep it as low as possible. It does project about a 5% reserve in the coming years. As I mentioned, most of the funds are passed through. They come from the city. They come from the residents via city billing for waste and recycling services, and paid to WM by the city monthly. As I said, we allocate portion of salaries of employees who spend time billing and handling other issues inside this account. The conclusion of this report finds that the 10% franchise fee, along with the proposed rates, are adequate to pay WM, fund city costs, or manage our solid waste programs, and maintain adequate cash reserves for the next 5 years. The next part of this item and the action item this evening is the Proposition 218 protest period. So the proposed rate structure, as we mentioned, is subject to Prop 218. Council will be asked tonight to tentatively approve the attached rate structure and authorize the 45-day notification period as outlined under the Government Code Section 53755. In addition, MSW, our consultant, has included a study on the proposed rates, projected growth within our ratepayers, and analysis of our refuse and recycling enterprise fund, and provided the attached study and report. And their contributions have ensured that these rates are reasonable, do not exceed costs of delivering the physical services and administrative costs associated, especially with state laws requiring more city staff time to be allocated to waste recycling and landfill diversion efforts. So customers will receive a notification via mail with the new proposed rate structure, including county landfill fees, which are adopted separately by the County of Kern, along with information regarding the process for the rate approval. Those desiring to protest the proposed rate increase will be instructed in the notice about that process. A public hearing notice will be published in the Tehachapi News no less than 10 days prior to the public hearing. Barring a 50% plus one majority protest of all property owners, the new rate structure can be approved by the City Council at the public hearing. Should the protest be successful, the City of Tehachapi will still be required to provide the organic service and commercial recycling bin service. Estimated cost for this service would impact the general fund to the tune of about $800,000 in the coming fiscal year. The anticipated 5% increase annually depending on the consumer price index used to generate those annual rates. In addition, if we just said we're just not going to do it, and Cal Recycle then has the ability to fine us, it results in a $10,000 a day fine by Cal Recycle, totaling about $3.65 million annually, and those funds are levied against the allocations of revenue controlled by the state, and so therefore they would just withhold it. It's not like they'd send us a bill and say, yo, it's a fine. They would just keep our money. And so we're kind of in this tough spot here. As I mentioned in the past, we've spent a lot of time punting as much as we could on this issue. There were a few reports that came out about the merits of this. Unfortunately, there was no legislation to back that up in the state legislature to delay further implementation of this program. A couple years ago, one came out that this is why we're in this corrective action plan phase, where Cal Recycle was basically, we're in violation now, but Cal Recycle was stripped of their ability to fine us until 2024, and that's where we're at now. There was no successful legislation to extend that period or anything else. So this is why we're at this position today. So the recommendation is to tentatively approve the attached rate structure subject to the Prop 218 process and accept the rate report from MSW Consultants. I'd also like to authorize staff to notify ratepayers via written notice and set the final public hearing date for the adoption of the new rates on Monday, April 15th, 2024. Also with a caveat suggested by one of our consultants, just allow staff time to adjust the public hearing date should circumstances require prior to the issuing of the notices. So really within the next 5 days, we've got about a 10-day period, about 55 days out from April 15th. But should something come up, an attorney, whatever, just to give us a little more leeway. But our target is April 15th, and that public hearing date will be set in stone before we send the notices out to the ratepayers. So that is my report tonight, and as you can see, attached is the rate structure. This is what will be included in the notice to customers with a lot of the services, even kind of above and beyond what most people get, but we wanted to put it out there what the current base rate is, the mixed solid waste bin fees from the county, as well as some of the tipping fees they charge as well. So those are all listed in the rate report. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Can you read all that again?
You've been through this before, come on.
Council?
I have a question. This physical homeowners, what are they doing? Do they have a special container that's gonna go into the bin?
So it depends.
Is it like table scraps or what?
You know, we're kind of, you've always heard the term, right? Spirit of the law, letter of the law. I had a conversation with somebody today about that. If you ask the state, yes, they would like you to scrape your plates into it. But the reality is there are some other useful things for it that are probably less impactful. We are not going to be, some jurisdictions are, but we're not going to be out there popping lids and going, oh, you threw your salad away in the trash. You know, here's a fine. We're not doing that. You'll see that in some of our stuff. And actually, as part of the enforcement ordinance that you all approved previously, we're going to use some technology from their smart trucks. We're just looking for major contaminants. And so we're not going to be checking to make sure everybody's throwing lettuce into the green bin. And so there are some other applications for it. Food soiled paper, for example. I have 2 little kids that use a ton of paper plates. Those actually go in the organics bin.
Oh, really?
Pizza boxes are actually a food soiled paper. They're not recyclable. They don't go in your blue can because they're already contaminated because they have grease on them.
A milk carton,
Milk carton still goes recycling.
even if it's plastic?
Yes. It goes in the regular recycling, your blue, not your green. It goes in your blue.
See,
I'm just talking about your paper products. So paper towels, paper plates.
A paper milk carton would go in.
Yes, there you go.
The organics.
Yeah. Right? Paper milk cartons?
See,
Is that you? Yes, paper milk cartons. I always buy the big. I have
Plastic
kids.
milk carton has to be rinsed out though, and then put in the.
Yeah, like recyclables, we want to, you know, just still, we not like soap
I
and
can
everything.
see the problem now.
Rinse them out.
Rinsed.
Yeah.
It's all about
Rinse
diversion and keeping it out of the landfill, which the state tracks. One of my fears is, you know, there's a lot of issues with the state recycling programs, whether it be CRB. A lot of centers have closed because the market's just not there. And even now there's a big thing about the plastic bag ban, right? There are more plastic bags in the landfill now than before the ban because what they do, they charge us 10 cents for thicker plastic bags, which after you accumulate a closet full like I have, the rest of them just, you got no place for them. But the state rarely says, you know what, we made a mistake, let's fix it. They double down. And their goal for organics diversion is 75%, and I ain't gonna hit it, I don't think. And so my worry is if we don't hit that, they're gonna be even more heavy-handed on things. So this is our attempt to sort of help with that. But some of the practical applications, back to your question, will be some of those other things that yard waste can still go in there. Food soiled paper.
Yeah.
Like lawn clippings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big deal.
That's part of it. Yes.
3 acres is lawn.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can fill up quickly, but it's a slightly smaller cart. It's not the 96 like we have with trash and recycling. Now it's 64, so it's slightly smaller. It's not going to take up the same amount of space that the others are.
Would that be prunings from plants and trees?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have a flyer that goes out, this is what's gonna go into
Our
this
game plan is not only have a
bin.
flyer, but each bin has to be labeled now, state requirements. So there will be a sticker with pictures of what goes in. We'll also have some public workshops with WM that will say this is what goes in here. So it's again just trying to make the best out of the situation.
Right.
But there are some practical applications outside of, you know, your food scraps from dinner. But like I said, some jurisdictions, especially in Southern California, have gone that in depth to their enforcement. That is not our game plan at all.
Okay. Now the pickup dates, right now the recyclables are every other week.
Yes.
What is this gonna be?
So what will happen is we will have, every week will be trash and organics, and every other week will be trash, recycling, organics. So you will just always put out your organics. It's on a weekly schedule, and so it'll always be out with your trash can, and then every other week you'll throw the blue. So some weeks you'll have 2, and then your recycling week you'll have 3 out at the curb.
We're gonna have a master schedule somewhere we could go to?
Yes, we
I have
will.
trouble remembering.
That's kind of the beauty of right now. I mean, we're not putting this rate or this service in until July 1st. And so once we get through the protest period and should everything be finalized on April 15th, we will then start the next 2 months will be a lot of public outreach, schedules, calendars, workshops. This is what you put in it. This is what you don't. We have that stuff on our, it'll be on our website as well. This is what you put in it. This is what can't be. And so we'll have a lot of that information. That's kind of the beauty of having a couple months to work through this.
Can I
Yes.
do another question?
Yeah.
The physical part of the scraps that are going into this, are they going to a special bag and then into, or are we having a smelly green cart out there in the summertime?
Bags are allowed only if they're compostable, which they're hard to find. Compostable bags are very hard to find at this point, but if you can find them, great, those can go in there. But if not, they need to not be in a bag because what happens is it's going to come from your house, it's going to be dropped at the landfill, and then picked up and trucked to Shafter. Or are you guys going somewhere else, Shafter? For our Mount Vernon, yeah. So the Mount Vernon facility in Bakersfield will then take it and turn it into compost there.
So they're not going to take it right from our house to Mount Vernon. They're going to take it to our landfill, unload it, and then load it again.
Yes. So, and we made that conversation. I had that conversation in the past with the climate change goal, and I said, well, we're going to try to take methane out of the air, but then we're adding diesel trucks from Tehachapi to Mount Vernon, and vice versa. It wasn't the state, but it was another climate change organization that said, well, the answer is simple. You just build your own composting facility, which I don't think we have that kind of money laying around to build our own composting facility. So that's the logistics of it now. And I know there's an expansion plan for the county's expanding a facility in Shafter potentially, but still, that's still an even longer drive for our material. So that's the current infrastructure right now as it's in place.
Do these cans draw a lot of flies?
What's that?
Do these things draw a lot of flies? Because it's
a WM question, I'm not sure.
We've implemented it for years. Good evening, Council. Ashley Cortez with WM. No, we've had it implemented in other areas for a long time. As long as you're mixing it with the grass, the tree trimming, stuff like that, it's usually fine. You can put it in a paper bag, stuff like that. But I haven't seen any. I know there's a lot of concerns about flies and stuff like that. As long as, I wouldn't put it in and have it sitting there for a week. I usually wait and throw all my leftovers in there closer to my service day. I freeze some of them. I just keep them in the fridge until it gets closer to my service day, honestly. That's what a lot of people do. And then you can either put it in the compostable bags or a paper bag. So say you had a paper bag, a grocery bag at home, you could just put all your scraps in there food-wise from the kitchen and then put it all into the organics cart.
So not a plastic bag?
You can, but it has to be those compostable ones. And we can share all the links on when maybe we could do some giveaway. We'll do some fun stuff when that all comes down the pipe. But it's doable. It is, I promise. And we'll be here to help everybody along the way.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know when we go to visit our daughter in Seattle, they got this little container on the countertop for coffee grounds and scraps. It's just, it's just another process, but I guess we'll get used to it.
I do think education is going to be a huge component here.
Yes.
I just saw about 1,000 Facebook posts today about the trash cans that were delivered in Golden Hills, and they don't know what they're supposed to do with it, and they're not picking up service and what's going on, and so of course there's always going to be some people who don't pay attention to directions too. But
is that for your organic waste?
Yeah. So we're another kind of to Ashley's point too. I mean, for me, it's like you always think it's a good idea when you go to the grocery store, you buy certain vegetables, and then you forget about them. The next week you go to the store, and then you're like, oh, these peppers, can't use them anymore, right? And so it'll be kind of my fridge clean out bin on my grocery day, or when I thought, yeah, we're going to eat these leftovers. Yeah, not going to happen. So, but there is a lot of applications for it other than just scraping your plates every night. Some people can do that, absolutely. But if it's too much of a hassle, there are other applications for it. I know when we rolled it out for commercial customers, we had some restaurants, God bless them, they were like all in, and then they called me and they said, I've got this in the alley and it's just full of flies and maggots. Well, they had thrown a ton of meat, like trimmings from their order they've got, thinking they were doing the right thing, and so we kind of work with them on maybe not as much meat in the summer when it's warm, and let's sort of balance this out a little bit. So yeah, there's ways to, and it's been done in other jurisdictions, and we're just at the sort of final goal line for us. On this.
I do not, oppose the cost increase because you'll have 3 cans. My problem is, like, if you're in a single family household, you have 1 bag of trash a week, so you're paying the extra money for this service. I have a gardener, so he takes the green waste, so I'm gonna have this much in this can, this much in this can, and this much in this can, and it's, to me, that's totally ridiculous.
It goes back to that sort of, we talk about it with a variety of items, but it's that one-size-fits-all approach from the state.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Again, back to the point about the logistics of it all. Logistics don't really work for Tehachapi, but that was never considered when this was passed. This was all about, it works for large cities and large generators, and so therefore it must work for the rest of the state. So.
See, and then I have friends, that have talked to me about this, or we have talked about it, and it's like, I can see the problem. They're gonna go, I don't know which trash can to put this in because we're old, and we're going, okay, am I putting this in the right trash can or not in the right trash can? It's just gonna make a lot of.
We'll make it.
And
I
know you're gonna work
code.
with us to try to help us.
Yeah, we'll create a cheat code book for you. Yes, and there are labels on the cans. I mean, there will be a label, kind of shows you pictures what goes in there. And like I said, food sold paper is one of them that they encourage. So eat a lot of takeout that aren't styrofoam. That might work too.
Right, and it's like, okay, which trash can do I put out today?
Yes.
Even with the blue one, I go, okay, is this the week? Or I mark it on my calendar, and then
trash organics every week, blue every other week.
That's a hassle too, so I can see the problem with
Yeah.
people having to conform to that, so.
Luckily, we have a very solid communications team that will be helping me get that message out.
Well, in the old days, everybody had a burn barrel, if you recall.
We still have some of those burned fireplaces in the alleys downtown, right? Yeah.
Everybody had an incinerator.
Yes, we still have some of those downtown.
Okay.
What they do in Rome and Metropolis is in the past.
I'm not sure. Maybe that's why it failed. I have no idea.
Anyway, we're off track.
I'm gonna give Mr. Garrett just a few minutes, and then I'll give you my opinion. But go ahead, Mr. Garrett.
I wanted to go after you.
Okay, well, my opinion, this is terrible. I hate this idea. It's my wife and I, and if I have food waste, then I'm doing something wrong. I understand about restaurants. I think it's ridiculous. I oppose this thing from the get-go, but after reading all this and everything, we're gonna be forced to do it, so I'm gonna be the good guy and support it. But when we had that south wind here about a month ago or 2 months ago, there was 14 trash cans at the end of the street. So I took it upon myself to go pick them up and take them to everybody's, and if they're wrong, it's my fault because there's no addresses on the trash cans.
Yeah.
But I was walking out of my garage and I heard this noise and I go, what is that? Well, one trash can went down about 20 miles an hour down the street, and I went, oh, I'm lucky. I guess my wife put mine away. No, mine were already down there at the end of the field there on Laurel, that field.
Yeah.
And so I just imagine now if we have another wind, there's going to be another trash can that's going to.
Some of the hopes too with this, the diversion piece, right? So source separating. We have issues with overfilled cans a lot of times, and here it just takes some wind and then a few crows or ravens or whatever you want to call them, and then they start picking away. So the hope is with some of this, if there is less in your waste bin, we can reduce some of those issues. Wind is always going to be an issue, right? No matter what, no matter how many cans we have, wind's always going to be a problem. But hopefully that'll reduce some of the overflow issues if there's some source separating going on. So.
Well, I invite my neighbors to use my trash cans because mine's never full.
Yeah.
So,
what's your address?
Because the crows, do get in there and it's all over the place, all over the neighborhood. So, I mean, it helps. But
yeah, the merits of all this, we've talked about the merits of this for a long time. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but we are up against it on where we're at now. We tried to push as far as possible. Even actually, we've got a few times we've found a few little loopholes with things like their procurement. There are actually procurement requirements under this law. We have to procure X amount of recycled paper every year. We have to have compost contracts. I mean, luckily we have a compost contract with a wastewater sludge. We have a composting company that hauls it away. We get credit for that. Procurement doesn't necessarily mean buying. It means, procuring one way or the other. And so we get credit for that. We get credit. They want us to purchase X amount of bio electricity and recycled natural gas. So the gas company, SoCal Gas, our provider, and SoCal Edison has about 1% that they go into their grid or their pipeline is currently from these bio sources. We're able to take credit for that because it all goes in the same pipe and it all goes in the same transmission line. And so we take all the kilowatts we use every year, all the therms we use in gas, and then we take that 1% and credit that. When I first brought that up to Cal Recycle, they said, we're not sure that's legal. And I said, well, it's all going on the same pipeline, same grid. The electron's not different, whether it comes from bio or it comes from hydro. And they said, we'll have to get back to you. And then they came back and they said, well, you're right. There's no regulations that say you have to have it delivered to you a certain way. You just have to procure it. So we get a ton of credit for those. So we've been trying to find, so I was pretty happy I fooled the state in some ways. And I shared that with our other jurisdictions around Kern County and said, you guys need to do this too. It'll help you with the procurement stuff. There's a lot of stuff in this bill outside of just the third can. This is our last piece. We've already done the food rescue with the Salvation Army, and we have to keep records of that, what they collect and distribute, and it all goes back to the state to eliminate food waste and stuff in the landfill. So a lot of moving parts on this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Corey, for all your hard work on this. I know you've worked a lot on this, and I do appreciate it. And don't think for a second that I don't appreciate you.
I can't wait for this to be over, to be honest with you.
I just can't believe that we spent more time on this than the whole rest of the meeting on trash.
The day I was trying to figure out the 1% of how much, from the gas company, I remember telling Greg, I said, I never thought in my life I would be going through online documents trying to figure out what is being created from methane, little things like methane and what power they're creating out of cow waste. I never thought that would be my future, but here I am. So living the dream. So waiting for this to be over.
Mr. Garrett.
Bureaucracy run amok.
Yep.
Thank you, Corey. Corey has put an incredible amount of time, has led this effort, and has delayed this to the last minute for the state law. Waste Management, WM, true partner of ours, thank you for being here tonight, but through this entire journey also. Committed to educating every single person in this city. Using Key and Maya's expertise, no one will receive a can without the knowledge of schedules, what can or cannot go in there. Corey mentioned one size does not fit all. It does not. And I believe that the state is mandating stupidity.
Yes, sir.
At this point. But we're required to do this, and we need your support. There is no other option.
With that being said, we have no other questions. I have a motion.
I'd like to tentatively approve the attached rate schedule subject to the Proposition 218 process and accept the rate report from MSW Consultants.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Power,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bodencourt,
Yes.
Davies.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the way I feel.
Yes.
It's a 4-0 vote. I would also like to go on record that we did receive a letter today via the mail, and I did put a copy on the dais for all of you, and there's a copy in the binder in the back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City manager reports.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Council member reports. Mr. Smith.
At Kern Council of Governments, I attended the ribbon cutting with Jay. I found Jay down there at the Centennial Freeway, I guess you would call it. It's crosstown freeway. Anyway, 58 now in a couple of weeks when they're all.
It's open.
It's open.
It is.
I drove it yesterday.
I did too.
It's got to be a freaky experience because, was it a little different? Did you head out onto it?
What's that?
Did you head onto it just for the heck of it?
Yeah, no, I drove both directions.
Yeah.
It's great.
So, It's open now, so you go from 58 and cross over to the Centennial Freeway on the other side and head out toward I-5. That's where you're going. It's going to cut a lot of congestion out down there. And there are 2 more turn movements to be added to this enormous interchange. I think it's southbound 99, or is it northbound 99? Anyway, there's 2 more elements to be constructed in the next couple of years or so. So it's not a completed project, but it's the main thoroughfare going through is now open. So that we went to the ribbon cutting on that. There was hundreds of people there from all over, and it was kind of neat to be there. Former Congressman Bill Thomas was there to speak. He's been driving this for years and years. I've been on Kern Council of Governments 30 years now, and I remember when we just started talking about it, and then we finally got 6 years to build it. It was over $1 billion, 1.3 billion, I think, by the time. And some of that funding, I remind people, came from all the cities in Kern County. We had to shrink our draw on the Kern Council of Governments allocation that we get every 2 years. It was all going to that West Side Freeway, so for years. So we all contributed to that. And then one of the other things, I guess in Golden Hills on 202 area, they're going to be putting in bike lanes shoulder here soon, or is that coming up in the next few months? Anyway, you might be seeing some work out that way. And then there's a fiber optic. That's what's going in on 202 or Tucker at the moment, right? Yes.
Okay. And then there was some kind of an evacuation analysis that they were doing for emergencies with the cities for emergency preparedness. Was there evacuation?
Part of the planning exercise, yeah, I do believe KernCog is working on that. Jay, I don't know if you've been contacted yet, but it's over the next several months.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, and I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
John?
I've noticed a lot of repairs, from our rains and holes, and our city workers are out there busting their buns to get it all completed. We appreciate that very much. So, thank you.
Yep. Corey Torres isn't here tonight. I was hoping he'd make it here, but I wanted to thank our Public Works Department. We've got amazing parks here in this community that really make a difference. When I was at the chamber, I would watch before Mountain Festival all the families that would be at the parks enjoying the beautiful trees, having their kids run around, have picnics, birthday parties. And on Friday, our park had our community parks had some severe vandalism. And if you want to talk about it, I know you were very upset by it because it has to do with our community, our sense of pride in this community. And the Public Works stepped up, and you guys had the chemicals and the manpower and the equipment. And thank you very much for that, because I know I go to the park twice a week with my dogs. I walk my neighbor who occasionally needs assistance. But I mean, the parks are used in this community, and in many ways they're kind of the hearts of this community. So thank you, Public Works, for stepping up. I know, how many people were there? Just two? So Tehachapi Valley Parks and Rec has 11 people who work full-time, and they run over 100 acres of parks. So they very much needed your help, and thank you for that. And then I wasn't planning on saying it, but today, I wasn't expecting it. I've always been very proud of Tehachapi, and I think tonight I realized exactly why I love it. My husband served for 23 years, my dad served, my father-in-law served, my grandparents served, even my grandfather, who was Chickasaw from Red Lake Indian Reservation, served in World War II. So, and there's just such a community pride, and I'm just very, very grateful to be here.
We just have an awesome town. Everybody chips in. I appreciate the city helping the Meadow Brick Park. I know that's not in the city, but that was awesome what we did, participate. Yesterday, I participated in the first annual presidential polar plunge. people ask me, why would you do that? And I said, I don't know.
I watched.
But I did, and it was kind of a thrill, I guess you'd say, I don't know, but I watched the video and everybody's laughing at me going, they used to call me a polar bear, you know, so now it fits, you know, but what an awesome event, what a great turnout. I was late to it, I had another function through church, but I got there, and then I believe he's the wrestling coach. Him and I, we challenged each other, so we did it together, and it was a thrill. So it was, I got my little sticker. I didn't have tonight on my jacket, but it was kind of rewarding. I saw Mr. Garrett there. I saw a lot of other people there, but what a neat event for our community. So other than that, I don't see anything else, so we'll adjourn to closed session. If there's anything, I'll return.
Just adjourn to closed session.
Adjourn to closed session. Thank you.